Hello, and this is Delia again. I'm reading The Struggle, and this will be part 3. The implication was obvious. Now, let's see. The girl heard him. Well, maybe I'm on the side. Yeah, on the side. Meredith and Bonnie sat beside her. Do you want to talk? Meredith said in a low voice. Elena shook her head, staring into the fire. They were all against her, and Aunt Judith was wrong. She wasn't fine. She wouldn't be fine until Stephen was found. Matt stopped by, snow dusting his blonde hair and his dark blue parka. As he entered the room, Elena looked up at him hopefully. Yesterday, Matt had helped save Stephen when the rest of the school had wanted to lynch him. But today he returned her hopeful look with one of the sober regret, and the concern of his blue eyes was only for her. The disappointment was unbearable. What are you doing here? Elena demanded. Keeping your promise to take care of me? There was a flicker of hurt in his eyes, but Matt's voice was level. That's part of it, maybe, but I tried to take care of you anyway, no matter what I promised. I've been worried about you. Listen, Elena. She was in no mood to listen to anyone. Well, I'm just fine, thank you. Ask anybody here, so you can stop worrying. Besides, I don't see why you should keep a promise to a murderer. Startled, Matt looked at Meredith and Bonnie. Then he shook his head helplessly. You're not being fair. Elena was in no mood to be fair either. I told you. You can stop worrying about me and about my business. I'm fine, thanks. The implication was obvious. Matt turned to the door just as Aunt Judith appeared with sandwiches. Sorry, I've got to go, he muttered, hurrying to the door. He left without looking back. Meredith and Bonnie and Aunt Judith and Robert tried to make conversation while they ate an early supper by the fire. Elena couldn't eat and wouldn't talk. The only one who wasn't miserable was Elena's little sister, Margaret. With a 4-year-old optimism, she cuddled up to Elena and offered her some of her Halloween candy. How Elena hugged her little sister hard, and her face pressed into Margaret's little white blonde hair for a moment. If Stephen could have called her or gotten a message to her, he would have done it by now. Nothing in the world would have stopped him, unless he was badly hurt or trapped somewhere. Or she wouldn't let herself think about that. Last, or Stephen was alive. He had to be alive. Damon was a liar. But Stephen was in trouble, and she had to find him. Somehow, she worried about it all through the evening, desperately trying to come up with a plan. One thing was clear, she was on her own. She couldn't trust anyone. It grew dark, and Elena shifted on the couch and forced a yawn. I'm tired, she said quietly. Maybe I am sick after all. I think I'll go to bed. Meredith was looking at her keenly. I was just thinking, Mrs. Gilbert, she said, turning to Aunt Judith, that maybe Bonnie and I should stay the night to keep Elena company. What a good idea, said Aunt Judith, pleased. As long as your parents don't mind, I'd be glad to have you. It's a long drive back to Heron, I think. I'll stay too, Robert said. I can just stretch out on the couch here. Aunt Judith protested that there were plenty of guest bedrooms upstairs, but Robert was adamant. The couch would be just fine for him, he said. After looking once from the couch to the hall, where the front door stood plainly in view, Elena said stonily. They planned this between them, or at least they were all in it now. They were making sure she didn't leave the house.